Okay. I will call the Southbury Board of Selectmen regular meeting Thursday, June 7th, 2018 to order at 7 p.m. Can we have the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, first up we have a presentation by the Southbury Ambulance Association. Geraldine, are you here? Okay.
Good evening, everybody. Hi. Good evening, everyone. Geraldine Hoyt, Southbury Ambulance.
Is that on?
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Giving my presentation tonight will be Mr. Len Gersha from the Len Gersha Group. Southbury Ambulance has consulted with him on our behalf of this endeavor.
Good evening, members of the board. Thank you for allowing me some time to speak. My name is Len Gersha. I've been in public safety all of my life. The most significant part of my EMS career is I spent 9.5 years as the director of the Office of Emergency Medical Services in the state of Connecticut. Oops, I didn't do it. Okay, is that okay? I also have worked with Southbury before. After my state service, I worked with a whole company called the Holsworth Group until the CEO of that company retired, and in 2012, I was part of a system analysis here for the town, looking at the way EMS was delivered. I've been asked to come here and talk to you tonight about the upgrade of Southbury Ambulance to the paramedic level and what impact it might have on the community in a positive way, but also to be mindful of the possible financial impacts to the community. I've listed the call volume for the last 3 years, or the last 2 years in the first quarter of 2018, and you'll notice that through May 1st of 2018, 89% of the calls at dispatch were medic responses, and that you have a paramedic by contract with Campion. This includes 90 times in that period where there were second and third calls within an hour that were more paramedics were needed due to the call volume. On the Monday through Friday 9 to 5 time period, you average about 10 ALS calls per week, and that's on average. For some familiarity with the system, the state of Connecticut has designated what are called primary service area designations under regulation. Right now, currently, the Southbury Ambulance Association is a BLS service, basic life support. Heritage Village has their BLS life support thing, and up till about a month ago, Southbury Training School had the property of the Southbury Training School, and they were an ILS service, or intermediate service. There's 3 levels of service. Basic is EMTs, ILS is intermediate, which is a little bit more training and the ability to use an IV, and then there's, of course, the paramedic level. For the town of Southbury, the paramedic level primary service area is not designated and has never been. Currently, the town provides a subsidy to Campion of $287,000 per year, paid quarterly, and then Southbury Ambulance then returns the advanced life support portion of the billing back to the town. Southbury Ambulance in 2016, as you can see, returned $103,770, and in 2017 it returned $113,000 back to the town. It should be noted that HVAA also contributes its portions to the town, while STS, as a state agency, when they use paramedic savers, they do not return any of their contributions, and that's been long-standing. The proposed model that I'm going to talk to you about may reduce the reimbursed to the town by about $37,705.02. And we came to that conclusion when we looked at the fact that we believe that Southbury Ambulance will conduct 260 ALS calls themselves, keeping that revenue. Right now, the average charge or the ALS portion for those calls is $145.01. And you have a pretty middle-of-the-road payer mix. So many folks with Medicaid, so many folks with Medicare, and so many folks with private insurance. And there's a bad debt component of that. Staffing model, if I can work this. Currently, the staffing levels are as follows. Southbury Ambulance first unit is typically staffed with paid personnel. The second crew is staffed with volunteers, and of course the Campion paramedic by contract. The HVAA crew unit is typically staffed with paid personnel, and again, the paramedic by contract. And again, about 3 weeks ago, STS stopped its emergency medical services delivery to that property and that PSA, and it's currently being covered by Danbury Ambulance, which is a commercial ambulance service out of Danbury. Staffing recommendations, we believe that you should start staffing your primary unit. Right now, it's covered with 2 EMTs. We believe you should swap out one of those EMTs for a paramedic. The in-house paramedic would be dispatched based on the call under the emergency medical dispatch protocol. So when a 911 call comes in, it's triaged through a preset standard. There are several national companies that provide that service and that training. And then if it's a serious medical emergency, a paramedic would be dispatched. And if it were a basic life support call, EMTs would be dispatched. The Southbury Ambulance has said and shared with the town that it would take all of the costs for the equipment and the staffing, and they would absorb all that, and that the application for the Advanced Life Support Paramedic Program would be done by Southbury Ambulance, and they've asked me to assist them with that. Service improvements that can be brought to the town is additional paramedic staff in town. You had some really foul weather a couple weeks ago with the tornado coming through, using the expression that 2 is always better than 1. That would have an inherent paramedic in town all the time. It wouldn't be subject to the folks at Campion who have done a good job for the community over the last few decades, but this would be dedicated to your town. The long-term plan would be to increase the paramedic staffing by Southbury Ambulance and over time reduce the contributions that are needed, because you would have that paramedic there and they would use the revenue collected from those additional billings to reduce the town's costs. In 2012, as I said, we did a report, we did a study, and at that time we recommended paying the second crew Monday through Friday, which Geraldine does sometimes with contractors and some with her own folks, apply for the ALS upgrade at the paramedic level, and that the town might, at that point, only have to subsidize if there were bad debt or other things. And these are all from our report in 2012. And I'm happy to answer any questions. The process to get this done is an application which we have ready in draft, some staffing arrangements which Geraldine's already has in place, so it would be just modifying staff. And although it's not required under the current regulations to have a approval from the town for what's called an advanced life support upgrade, I've been in this job long enough to know that if the town is on board and puts a letter with it, the state folks in Hartford make it go much smoother. We've already been in touch with the medical director for the community from St. Mary's Hospital, and he's on board. Worked with Geraldine on a QA plan, so we're trying to get all the ducks in a row, and I'm here to answer any questions you might have on this process.
Did you say currently we have 2 EMTs? SAA has 2 EMTs?
Yes, ma'am, for their ambulance required by regulation.
So this paramedic wouldn't replace one of those 2 EMTs, it would be in addition to?
No, ma'am, it
Is that
would
what you meant?
replace one.
It would
So-
replace one,
right.
so you'd have 1 EMT and 1
Paramedic,
paramedic?
yep. Under the state regulations, an ALS ambulance, advanced life support ambulance requires paramedic and an EMT.
And that would be Monday through Friday?
The starting point would be Monday through Friday from 9 to 5 until they get some call volume under their belts to see how it goes. And then with conversations with Geraldine and the team at SAA, they can decide on, are you going to provide greater and greater levels of staffing? As a matter of background, I was part of the group that upgraded the new Milford ambulance. They started, as you're hoping to start, Monday through Friday, and now they're up to 12 hours a day, 7 days a week. So based on call volume, collections, that kind of stuff.
Thank you.
So.
Any other questions, the board?
So with doing that and bringing paramedic on, do we still have the Campion contract for their medic services? Like, how
Yes,
does
that would be unchanged, yes, sir.
Okay. And when you say you were involved in the 2012 report, is that the Holdsworth report?
Yes, sir.
From 2012?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So the recommendations that you're presenting now pretty much come from what Holdsworth had presented, sort of, in that report about having a medic in town, and especially during the high periods, Monday to Friday?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So, go ahead. I was brought in I was part of that team that delivered it. Bob made the presentation in this room. This was updated to look at the new financials and the new call volumes.
Okay.
Any other questions from,
Thank you.
okay,
Thank you.
I turn this back to you.
thank you. Next under presentations, Arthur O'Neill. He's not here. Okay. George, are you here for something?
Public comment?
For that presentation.
Okay,
If
okay.
anybody wanted to comment
No? Okay, Arthur,
or not.
okay, next we'll move on to public comments. This will be limited to 3 minutes per person. If you can state your name and public comments? Anybody? Public comments? George, are you public commenting?
Well, I'll be public. I'm as public as it gets, yeah.
Never closer.
Right, thank you. Yeah, I'm George Goodwin. I'm Chief of Service for Heritage Village. And basically, about the presentation that was just made, I think that there's been a lot of talk, and a lot of us have seen growth in Southbury right underneath our feet. And I think it is perhaps for considering the future growth of this town. Right now, it's clear, everybody knows that the volume in the town really doesn't support a full-time paramedic, which is a 24-hour proposition. I mean, it's $1 million a year, basically. So to be able to start on a limited basis shows a proactive measure on the part of the town, and I think it may go quite a ways to bolstering public confidence in the overall state of EMS. I think Southbury could be commended for this because they are going to be shouldering a great deal of this expense, at least initially. So I think it would be a good thing, and if you consider it going forward. Okay, thank you.
Thanks,
Thanks,
George.
George. Thank you for your work. Any other public comment? If you'll state your name.
Hi, Jeff.
Hi.
I'm Nan McKernan. My name is Nan McKernan. I am a resident here in town that lives on Sleepy Hill Road, and I'm actually here to talk about my experience with the tornado. I believe, actually, that the tornado brought out the very best in many of us. I actually hiked through the woods in my flip-flops for over 2 hours with the help of another resident to reach mine and my husband's 14-year-old daughter who was home alone when the tornado hit. The man who guided me home disappeared into the darkness, taking with him my chance to say thank you. Our neighbors climbed through rubble of unimaginable scale to share water and food and supplies with those of us who were literally trapped in our homes. Friends and fellow taxpayers in town scaled debris in droves carrying chainsaws, generators, and they cleared roadways and paths to our homes through dense downed trees. And they did all of this completely by hand. When our officials finally descended days after the tornado hit, disappointingly, they did so empty-handed, save for business cards that they were quick to distribute. None donned work clothes or carried water, food, or tools that many of the residents needed. None rolled up their sleeves to lend a hand to those in peril. And for me, most disappointing was that no one asked, what can we do differently in the future to be better prepared for an unexpected event of this magnitude? Instead, from this citizen's perspective, accountability is being passed, politics are being played, and no apologies are being made for those of us who experienced a subpar response. We are told to wait, be patient. These things take time. Natural disasters wait for nothing, nor are they patient, or nor do they take their time. As such, neither should the efforts to implement better emergency preparedness. So I suggest we all leave politics and antiquated old thinking at the curb with literally the tons of trees aligning our road and start developing a plan that leaves Southbury residents and taxpayers much less vulnerable should we fall victim to a natural disaster like the one that affected us so incredibly greatly in the middle of May. I ask all of you to pretend it was you hiking through the woods in bare feet to get home to your loved one in the dark with no power for 2 weeks, no other ancillary services for 3, and ask yourself what kind of town response you would want.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other public comment? We have you on the agenda. Hello, Lori.
Lori, Nan's not tall enough. Lori Grabowski. I'm just going to read what I sent to First Selectman Manville on Friday, and full disclosure, I sent it to him through Facebook Messenger to his own page. So this wasn't directed to the town in that capacity at that moment, but I would like to submit it for the record. And I'm extremely nervous and I'm extremely tired, so full disclosure. Hi, Jeff. I need to talk to you about what's going to happen in the immediate future with the mess. Jim at the Highway Department told me there's no outside contractor hired yet for debris pickup. My concern is that my parents have 3 root systems in the town right-of-way at 947 Bullet Hill Road, so they cannot reap the benefit of dragging stuff to the road for the ultimate pickup when contractor is finally in place. I really don't need to see town employees cutting the grass on back roads and then coming by with the blowers. I don't see how regular scheduled work can't be pushed aside so that the cleanup of the areas can be prioritized. Jim actually thinks 50% of the town was affected by the storm. I think that's ridiculous. I told him we can agree to disagree. And if 50% of the town was affected, then it would make no sense not to push regular work aside. The town was not decimated by the storm, thank God. My parents don't expect to wait for months to go by before something happens at the front edge of their property. And as an aside, I'm on Sleepy Hill also, so I'm right next door to my neighbors who are awesome, and they're the only reason we got to see the outside of our neighborhood in the first week. Would you like me to come by for your office and have a meeting for 10 or 15 minutes? You can give me an update. Our people on our hill are looking for an update that addresses our concerns. Thanks for listening. Also, Jim said the town never came to Sleepy Hill because of downed power lines. That sounds ridiculous to me because the fire department is able to manage situations involving power lines by corresponding with Eversource and finding out what's live and what's not in an effort to keep everyone safe. How is it that the town didn't know for 6 or 7 days whether or not it was safe to drive over the wires on Sleepy Hill? Charter and Frontier were able to make it down the road after we cleared the trees. We is a broad term because it was really those two and their friends with the help of the rest of us. I said, I'm really just shaking my head. At a later date, I would like to discuss with Board of Selectmen and any other emergency service coordinators that perhaps the senior citizens that live outside a Heritage Village in our community may need to be categorized and put on some kind of a roster. So the next time this happens, the town will know where the most vulnerable citizens are and check up on them. So that was what I wrote to Jeff. I want a better explanation about why it took 7 days.
We have a limit of 3 minutes for public comment.
So that's the end of it. I'd like to know at some point in the next month why it took 7 days. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comment? Any other public comment? Any other public comment? Okay, moving on to correspondence and announcements and correspondence. You have that in your packet. Consent agenda,
Motion to approve the consent agenda?
made and seconded. Any discussion on it? All in favor of the consent agenda, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Just sorry to see Phil go.
Um,
Why
And,
did he leave suddenly? I mean, wasn't he?
His decision.
Okay.
Any abstentions? Okay. Minutes of May 16th, 17th, and 22nd, emergency meeting, regular meeting, and a special meeting.
Will they be approved?
Do I have a second?
Second.
Made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Transfers. Where are our transfers? FYI, you have them in your package. Is there any question about the transfers? have the Board of Selectmen approval. What's that? Nothing. No, we're all good. Oh, you're all good back there? Okay. Subject to approval, Salisbury Board of Selectmen resolved that the Salisbury Board of Selectmen hereby approves the following transfers: computers from software support, $7,540, to telecommunications system support, $5,957, and $1,583. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second? I'll second. Made and second. Any discussion on it? All in favor? Aye. Any opposition? And any abstentions? So that carries. Unfinished business is charter revision. I would recommend that we create the charter revision process committee and start that process. We don't have to approve any, it gives us 30 days to the people. I would resolve that the Salisbury Board of Selectmen, in accordance with Section 1002 of the Salisbury Charter, Section 7-188B of the Connecticut General Statutes, hereby authorizes the appointment of a Charter Revision Commission. Any motion?
So moved.
Have a
Second.
Made and seconded. Any discussion on that?
So is the plan then, we're going to organize the commission, we have 30 days to fill it, so we're going to do that at the next meeting?
Yes,
or-
we can.
Okay. And then one of the things I think we should do, to the extent anybody on the board has specific items that they'd like the Charter Revision Commission to look at, that should be part of any motions we make at the next meeting. The Charter Revision Commission doesn't have to listen to us or do anything we want them to do. But if we ask them to look at something, they do have to look at it, and they do have to give some rationale as to which way they went on it. So we should keep that in mind. And if there's things about the charter we
So
don't
you,
think
if you
work.
want, if you'd like to send it to the office, and we'll have that compiled, what you might think, if that's all right?
Sure.
All right. And we want to, go ahead, yes.
Do we have a final update? Have we gotten all of the, I know we've gotten emails of names and we were waiting for some files or resumes, I think, from some people. Have we?
Some not. We're trying to,
Okay.
we'll get that together.
I would just like to ask that we reach out to those people that we haven't gotten bios from, because I feel like it's gonna become a familiarity as opposed to a, this is a very critical board.
And we can, at that point, decide what kind of number we think should be on there. I don't think we need to do it now. Kind of looking to Jason, because he's been involved with this trial
We don't have to set it
before.
now. I mean, I could tell you the commission that Ron and I were on, there were 9 of us. It was mixed between parties and unaffiliated voters, and I thought 9 was a manageable number. I wouldn't make it any larger than 9. We were able to meet in the conference room, and it was more of a sort of working group discussion type setting. You could go with less, but I mean, 9 seemed like it worked the last time, and I think it's been 9, but for a couple commissions in this town, so.
Yeah. Okay. I'll call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? It carries. We have to discontinue a portion of Depot Hill. We have a recommendation.
I will have to recuse myself because I'm an employee of the law firm that represents him.
Okay.
I will leave the room and somebody
Thank
come get me when it's done.
We'll come get it. We promise.
Okay, do you?
So, this has been recommended by planning. I don't know if there's any questions on this. I'll entertain a motion for discussion.
I move that we adopt the following resolution. Resolve the Salisbury Board of Selectmen, upon the recommendation of the Planning Commission in accordance with Section 8-24 of the Connecticut General Statutes, hereby sets the date of Thursday, June 21, 2018 at 7 p.m. in room 205 at Town Hall to hold a town meeting tacked on the discontinuance of a portion of Depot Hill Road designated with the notation roadway to be discontinued area 13,522 square feet plus or minus .3104 acres plus or minus on a map entitled Data Accumulation Plan depicting former roadway. This is a long motion to be
He's good.
discontinued, prepared for Oak Tree Southbury LLC, MBL 29-56-80, Depot Hill Road, Southbury, Connecticut, dated 4/4/17, revised to 11/27/17, scale 1 inch to 30 feet, prepared by Stewart Summers Company LLC, map, which portion is no longer of public convenience or necessity.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
I guess second it. I'll open it up for discussion. Is there any question or discussion on this? Any?
Seems like an easy thing to agree.
It's not used anymore.
It's not used anymore, there's no economic use for it, no.
Would anybody like to hear from the
I
applicants?
see Gail's here, so.
Gail, come
is there
on,
any-
come on
If there's
up.
anything that,
I'm just here to answer any questions. I represent the applicant. This was a piece that was left over from the IBM when the interchange was put onto 84, and it's just there with nothing. The neighboring property has agreed that once it's discontinued, the half, which is the Pomperog Office Park, is going to deed their half, so it all goes into one piece, makes a commercially better piece of property for development. So I think it's a win-win all the way around.
Any other questions? I'll call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposition? Any abstentions? So
Thank you very
carried.
much. And
Thank
we'll
you.
need to get
Thanks,
some
Gail.
signatures on the documents for that, for recording on the land records, which we provided.
Soon.
Okay, thank you.
Soon. Okay. We'll wait for Jennifer to come in.
We missed
Okay.
you, Naylor.
Welcome back.
Hey, thanks.
We're at the tornado, 2018 tornado. We're still moving forward. My understanding is Southbury has filed the largest loss claim in New Haven County. I want to say that, again, that this was a very large and serious natural disaster. Southbury, both the citizens and the municipal employees did a great job given the magnitude of the event. And the town is gathering, will be gathering data, et cetera, and continue to work on the issues that we have to deal with to get this cleaned up. So we are working on that. Is there any questions?
Can I just add to that? Because there was a comment about it earlier, and I think it is important when you have an event of this magnitude in the town, regardless of how well it went or how well it didn't go, that you take a look back afterwards and determine what went right, what went wrong, what could be done better. And I just want to mention that that is happening. Scott Furr, our Deputy Emergency Management Director, is already starting to organize meetings of the local emergency planning committee, and especially those folks that were in the EOC the first couple of days, to evaluate what happened, to take a full look at it, do a lessons learned, come up with ideas and protocols for going forward. So that's in the works. That is going to happen, and he's planning not just one meeting, but a number of sessions on this topic. So,
It is an after-action, it was a plan very early on to have an after-action session, and we will be doing it. And yes, Jason, I will agree, and I'll publicly state that no natural disaster ever goes 100% right. And even Scott Furr has said, in all his experience, it never goes 100%. We learn from it, we develop better processes, and we will be working on that. So yes, there's a number of things that still need to happen, and we will be working on that.
Jeff, if I may.
Yes, ma'am.
The Strategic Plan Task Force is meeting next Thursday, and we asked Scott to come and join us because we will be including a portion of the resiliency recovery process into the suggested plan for the Board of Selectmen to review and consider. So you all are invited to that, and as is the public.
And I would also just say, to add to that, that when Scott and the others are prepared to have that discussion with us, that we do give the public enough time to know that it'll be on the agenda, and that we, let them know that their public comments are required and welcome at that date, so we can
Agreed.
hear more from them So as Jeff said, and as Jason said, God forbid, the next time this does happen, we do it better.
It could always be, the discussion has come out, like, you know, we lost towers on, coming off of the dam. But one of the concerns is what happens if that tornado had actually come through and hit the substation and taken that out? What then? You know, and so there's a lot of things we can look at, and we will be. Okay, new business. We'll all start with the tornado? Okay. Moving on to new business.
We have to add Covanta contract.
What's that?
Contract.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, my other thing. I'd like to add to the agenda the Covanta contract, or amendment to the contract to extend it. Do you have it up there? John, are you here?
Yes, I am.
Would you like to address the board?
Good evening. I contacted Covanta, a little bit of emails back and
Wait a
forth.
minute. Can we add the Covanta contract to the,
Second.
made and seconded? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried.
Sorry, jumped the gun. Basically, you have a letter there. We've been dealing with Covanta. I was asked to see what we could do for a longer term. I approached Covanta on that. I asked for 3 years, possibility of a 3-year contract. They came back and said, no, that wasn't going to happen. They'd only look at 2 years. I asked, well, can I have the $70 after 2 years that he said that they were offering the first year at? They ended up getting back to me and saying, well, if we're going to do a 2-year, the first year will be $72 and the second year will be $76. At which point at time I said, well, it appears to me then for the 1 year, that $70 would be the most recommended item to do. So that's kind of what my recommendation is. We'll go for the 1 year, and then look at this again next year.
So, of course, we had to agree with the prior board meeting to enter into this. So I think we just want to make sure that this is ratified on that, right? We had to get our garbage picked up.
Yes.
So resolve that the Southbury Board of Selectmen hereby authorizes first Selectman Jeffrey E. Manville to sign the Fourth Amendment to the Municipal Solid Waste Disposal and Recycling Service Agreement with Covanta Projects of Bristol Incorporated for the period of July 1st, 2018 through June 30th, 2019. Have that motion?
Aren't there 2 contracts? Sorry. Yes, so moved.
So moved, second?
Second.
Made and seconded.
Aren't they separate contracts? Isn't there an MSW?
It's
and
just
then a
MSW with Covanta.
Okay.
Originally, the initial contract was for both MSW and recycling, at one of the amendments, they no longer wanted to be involved in recycling.
Got it.
So that's probably why it says both recycling. So we're only dealing with them on
MSW.
in the amendments, just to continue with the MSW.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposition? Any abstentions? It is approved. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Okay, next, under new business, item number J, or letter J1. Mr. Salzman's request to speak to the Board of Selectmen regarding tree cutting on town-owned property open space. Next on the agenda item concerns the cutting of trees on town open space land adjacent to Cooney Road by the neighboring property owner, Alan Salzman. Mr. Salzman is present this evening and requests permission to address the board. Mr. Salzman owns a home located at 216 Coon Road, which sits high above the portion of Lake Little Nola known as Little Nola Cove. Mr. Salzman is an attorney who practices law in New York. He lives at the home on 216 Coon Road with his wife, Mr. Salzman is the property owner. The Salzman house has a rooftop deck and windows on one side facing toward the south and east towards the main stem of the Lake Lonola, and on the other side, and on another side lake facing to the north and west towards the Chapag River, as shown on photo 1, house rear elevation, and photo 2 from the deck. The town owns open space land abutting the Salzman property between the Salzman property and the lake, as shown on field map 2447, field map 2446. Shows the location and boundaries of the Salzman property. Superimposed on the field map is an arrow showing the location and direction of the tree cutting. As shown on the field map, there is town-owned property located on both sides of the right-of-way, which runs parallel to the boundary of the Salzman property. Trees were cut or topped on the town-owned, on both sides of the right-of-way in an area that begins where the arrow shown on the map intersects with the Salzman's property line and continues in the direction of the arrow. At a width of approximately 40 feet and a distance of approximately 100 yards down a very steep slope in the direction of the lake. The tree cutting was reported to the town by a resident who was using the town property for recreational purposes. We looked into the matter, and I conducted a site visit along with the Director of Public Works, Cindy Harrison, and the town attorney, Jeff Tinley. Following the site visit, a decision was made to send a letter to Mr. Salzman concerning this matter to give him an opportunity to explain his position. A copy of Attorney Tinley's letter to Mr. Salzman has been provided in this letter. Attorney Tinley states, I am writing to you on behalf of the town of Southbury as the town attorney. The town has gathered clear evidence that you cut or directed others to cut a significant number of trees on town open space property that borders your property at 216 Coon Road. I have enclosed an aerial photograph depicting the area in which the trees were cut. The actions taken in cutting these trees constitute an unlawful trespass as well as violations of Connecticut state statute, town ordinances, and the town's common law property rights. The town intends to pursue appropriate legal redress for these unlawful actions. If you would like to discuss this matter before the town initiates legal action, please contact me. If I do not hear from you within 10 days, the town will proceed without further notice with such actions as it deems appropriate. Attached to Attorney Tinley's letter is a photograph from Google Earth on which the area in which the trees were cut are clearly visible. After receiving the letter, Mr. Salzman contacted Attorney Tinley to accept his invitation to meet. Last Thursday afternoon was a meeting at Attorney Tinley's office among Mr. Salzman, myself, Cindy Harrison, and Attorney Tinley. At that meeting, we showed Mr. Salzman a slice of a tree that had been cut. We indicated that based on the number of rings, it appears that the tree was more than 125 years old. Attorney Tinley also provided Mr. Salzman with a copy of Chapter 8 of the Southbury Plan of Conservation and Development, which describes the town's open space program and states in part that preserving open space is an imperative goal for Southbury and an essential component of this plan. We also described the history and origins of this particular open space as part of an $8 million land purchase made jointly by the town of Southbury and the state of Connecticut from a private party in the 1990s. We then gave Mr. Salzman an opportunity to explain the facts as he understood them concerning how it came to be that these trees were cut on town open space land. Mr. Salzman stated one morning that two men who came to the house in a truck and asked if he had any work. He said he did not recall when this was, who they were, does not know their names, and cannot recall how much he paid them. Later in the conversation, he indicated that he remembered it was a Tuesday morning and he was on his way to the city. He said that he remembers they had a dog in the truck, a Rottweiler, and he told them to keep it in the truck because he was afraid of it. He also said he thinks that he may have paid them in cash something small in the range of $400 or $500. He asked them to widen the view from his property and left for New York. Attorney Tinley noted that the trees which have been cut or topped had been tagged and inventoried and number more than 100 in total. Attorney Tinley also noted that the town-owned property was located on both sides of the right-of-way and that trees had been cut or topped on both sides. Mr. Salzman claimed that he thought his property extended all the way to the edge of the right-of-way closest to his house. As shown in on the field map, this is incorrect, as the Salzman property does not extend all the way to the edge of the right-of-way. And at minimum, however, Mr. Salzman acknowledged that he knew he did not own the property on the other side of the right-of-way where the majority of the tree cutting occurred. Mr. Salzman was told that the town is still evaluating how much it intends to address the situation. On Monday of this week, Attorney Salzman called Attorney Tinley to inquire whether, when the Board of Selectmen discussed the matter, he might have the opportunity to address the board. It was explained that the Board of Selectmen meetings are public except when there is an executive session, and that there is an opportunity for public comment at each meeting. After considering Mr. Salzman's request, we determined that it would be appropriate to place this matter on the agenda for this meeting and to invite Mr. Salzman to speak to address the matter beyond the normal limits of public comment. Mr. Salzman is here voluntarily at his request. Our purpose at this meeting is not to argue or debate the facts, nor are we prepared to make any decision concerning this matter this evening. We are here to listen to what Mr. Salzman has to say. Mr. Salzman, you have the floor.
Good evening, everyone. The reason I'm here is not to say that I have no responsibility for what happened. But let me just try to set the stage as to what did happen. Let's start before it happened. My house had views both to the right and to the left. Those views that I had preceded my purchasing the house. When the time came before this event that I needed any work done as far as trees were concerned, I would call, and I did call, Bartlett Tree Company, and I had a relationship with a gentleman by the name of Al Kravakis, who works for Bartlett Trees. What happened here was, and the allegation is, that I cut or that I directed someone else to cut down those trees. That's not what happened at all. Now, I'm not saying that to say I have no responsibility for this, because as you hear what happened, there is some responsibility on my part, because I was naive and I was negligent. And the thing that really is upsetting is, being an attorney, if a client did this, I wouldn't be able to understand it. But here's what happened. I'm semi-retired. I go to the city a few days a week. On that particular day, and I don't remember what month it even was, I was going to New York City, and on the road right by my house, there was a van. Guy came out of the van and said, "Do you need any trees or anything cut on your premises?" He said, "We're here, we could do it relatively cheap." I had no intention of doing any cutting at all. If I had any intention of doing cutting, I would have called Bartlett Tree Company. They were there. They said they could do it reasonably, for a reasonable amount of money. The trees that were already cut on my property that preceded me could have used some more cutting. I figured, well, they're here, I'm here, they're gonna do it for cheap, no problem. We discussed it while I was in the roadway, and the first question they asked me was whether or not, if they cut what was on my property, whether or not they would have to cart it away. I told them they did not have to cart it away, because the trees on my property to the left and the right of them is just more trees. So I didn't think it was necessary to pay additional money for them to cart it away. So you just cut down what you have to cut down and just throw what you cut on the side, because no one will see it. The next question they said to me, well, we're gonna do it for X. And I don't remember what the numbers were. But if you could pay us in cash, we'll do it for less. I said, well, how much are we talking about as far as the cash is concerned. It was not a large amount of money. I don't remember what it was. Maybe it was $300, whether it was $400. I said, okay, that sounds fair. We went back to the house, they pulled their van onto my property. I went into the house, I said to my wife, listen, there are two guys here who are gonna cut down some trees or make it a little bit better of the view. I'm gonna give them cash and I'm gonna leave. I went to New York, I went to my office, I called her a few hours later. I said to her, how are they doing? She said, they're gone already. I said, well, maybe I overpaid because they weren't here that long. But anyway, some months thereafter, and I don't remember exactly how many months, I get a call from my next door neighbor. He says, there's someone down in the woods that is marking or doing something in the area where our properties meet. He said, why don't you come down here and take a look? So I went around to the area, and I got there, and I said to him, holy mackerel, what did these, that wasn't exactly the words, but holy mackerel, look what these guys did. I can't believe it. I paid them, I don't know, it was $300 or $400. They cut down the overhanging on my property, and that's evidently what they did. I was flabbergasted. First of all, I didn't even know how they could possibly do it to cut down the trees because they didn't even have any equipment. They only had a van. I didn't know what was in the van, but I found out from you when I went to the meeting that it doesn't take much to cut down these trees as long as they have the proper saw. Now, like I say, I didn't direct them. I didn't do it myself. I didn't want it done. But I am responsible. I mean, I should have supervised them. I should have known what they were doing. I should have made sure that they did what they were supposed to do. I would never, ever tell them or direct them or condone them to go into property that's on the other side of the road. I mean, I didn't know exactly where my property ended, but I knew that my property certainly did not extend to the other side of the roadway. Maybe, and I was thinking about it after our meeting, maybe there was a miscommunication with myself and them as to what I wanted done. They knew that I wanted to enhance my view, no question about it, a view that I already had. It's not like they came and I wanted to make a view. That view was already there. I just wanted to improve it. Now, the reason I'm here is, besides telling you the story, is I know as an attorney that if I had a client, I would tell him not to come here. Never speak to anyone if you don't have to speak to anyone. I mean, my usual expression is even a fish would not get caught if they kept their mouth shut. But this is a different situation. I live here in this community. I moved to this community for the very reason that we're talking about is the trees and the water and the kayaking that I do and all of that stuff. The other reason I'm here is I don't want this to go any further. My wife is not in the best medical condition. I don't want to have this kind of aggravation. I want to see if we can reach some kind of agreement to satisfy Southbury. I don't want to get involved with lawyers. I know what lawyers do. I did it for a living for many, many years. I don't want the process. It's an expensive process. There's court processes. There's appeal processes. I want to see, like I say, I have responsibility, and I own up to my responsibility, and I want to see whether or not we can come to some agreement to resolve this problem to everyone's satisfaction. So thank you for listening. And just by one other thing. That lady who spoke previously about the storm, my wife was stuck between a tree in front and a tree in back. She was in her Jeep. The trees were coming down on her Jeep. She couldn't get out of there. She called me on the phone. I happened to be in New York when everything happens. And she was frantic. And two good Samaritans, unknown to her, came. They extradited her from the Jeep. She had to walk in the fields. She didn't have the flip-flops like this woman had. She had shoes on, but she had to go. And that person or persons also disappeared into the wilderness, and she never got to thank them. And we still have one of their coats that they gave her because she was cold. So the people of Southbury, what she said, I agree with.
Thank you.
Thank you, Alan.
Thank you.
Okay. First Selectmen's update. Good news, I got a letter from Dave Radka, from Director of Water Resource and Planning from Connecticut Water, an updated on Heritage Water Company water supply plan amendment. And the good news is they are taking the power plant off as a priority user. And list of priority users are Watermark of East Hill, Lutheran Convalescent Home, River Glen, Pumperog Woods, Hearth of Southbury, and Grace Meadows. So we're moving forward. They've actually removed them from the priority list, which is something they had committed to, and I want to thank Connecticut Water for doing that. I just want to let everybody know, we've had meetings with AARP on the tax prep. As you know, there was not in Southbury the last time, and we are meeting with them. We're hopeful that they will be able to be in Southbury the next season. We're trying to get that. It's more complicated than you think, but I want to say a huge thank you for the help being supplied by the Southern Baptist Convention Disaster Relief New England. They've done a phenomenal job. They've been out, nothing but I'm hearing good things, and they've said that they will be here till they're done. And they have showers set up. They have a woman that all she does is laundry all day long, just to keep the people going. And they are looking. It's on our Facebook. They're running into need for water. You know, this community, I'm bracing myself for water, but you know, they need a lot of water out there. So the call's gone out, and we'll do what we can to get them water. My office did a cooked for the seniors their picnic on May 24th. That's always a nice get together with the seniors, and the music and the dancing, and was nice. And Cindy also did most of the cooking. I did the visiting, I confess. Spruce Brook Road Bridge is being worked on. It's progressing nicely. It's quite a feat of engineering, but we're working on that to get that done. And again, my understanding is that we have filed the largest loss claim in New Haven County, and we'll be working on that. Reports from liaison, George?
Jeff, before we get to that, I have a
Yes, sir.
question about the agenda, because I just noticed in a prior version of the agenda, there was something about the library bid, and there was an email from Shirley
pulled
yesterday.
off.
So I
Pulled
just wanted
off.
to make sure it wasn't a,
No.
okay.
One comment on storm cleanup is I've heard reports that there are some contractors in town offering their services to clear trees in people's yards at exorbitant prices. I mean, I've heard like $75,000 was one bid. And I'm not personally familiar with the details, but the rumors are quite disturbing. I think people in town should be very cautious about accepting these bids.
Yeah.
Rip-offs really is what they are.
There is the ones that will come, and hopefully people do their due diligence. I myself like to support our local contractors who are going to be here after the storm and have a reputation to maintain in our community, which is important to them. And I think that hopefully that'll understand them. We all set?
As far as reports, nothing on road study committee. Region 15, I haven't heard anything from. I think that whole project is defunct at this point, unless I hear something otherwise. Streetscape lights, not a lot to report. It's in Jeff's hands. As far as IT committee, I had a meeting with Ray and some potential contractors on the 14th, the day before the storm. And I must be psychic, or maybe it's psychotic, I don't know, one or the other. But I suggested at the meeting, you know, I described the situation at the meeting, because we do backup between police station and town hall, and the town hall backs up the police station and vice versa. But I said, what if a tornado comes through and hits both buildings? What happens? Because I'm kind of pushing for cloud backup services on this for the town. Sure enough, the next day we got hit by a tornado. So I don't know. I just keep my mouth shut from now on. But there is a lot of progress going on with the IT committee, talking about how to do things differently in the future. The Naugatuck Valley COG just got hit. I think you may have heard about that.
Their website got hacked.
Yeah. Was it a website or was
Their
it
website, my understanding.
Just their website. So, I mean, cybersecurity is a real issue, and we're going to see what we can do to secure the town. No solution is guaranteed 100%, but I think we can do better. That's all I got.
Okay, Justin.
Not much to report. The EDC meeting on May 16 got canceled. I got left off the email for the reschedule, so I have to update you next time on that one. The IPOC meeting got canceled as well. That one got rescheduled to Monday, June 11th, so we'll have an update next time on that one. And the Committee for Town-Owned Properties is meeting with one more broker before we wrap up. And the gentleman we're hoping to talk to is on vacation, so we're hoping to schedule that for next week. That's it.
Jason.
Oh, tonight's the last night of restaurant week for the
Yes.
EDC, so get out there if you haven't.
Library has not met since our last meeting. They'll be meeting there at the end of the month, and then they don't meet for the summer. The big thing going on over there, which I thought we were talking about tonight, but probably be a later meeting, is the Friends of the Library gave them a gift, and they're sort of redesigning their entranceway. So they're working on that. LEPC obviously was very active, and I think all the reports have been given and updates have been provided, and there'll be meetings, as I mentioned, coming up in the near future to look back at the response to the storm.
So the money for the library light upgrades is coming from Friends of the Library?
That, I'm not so sure about that. Yeah, it's a larger project and the lights are a portion of it, and I forget how the breakdown is.
Different
Part of it's
pieces.
from the gift fund, most of it, I believe, is from the Friends.
But it's not town money, it's.
No. That's my understanding.
Yes, that's the understanding. Jennifer.
Senior Commission meets in several weeks. Planning Commission I did not attend. Strategic Planning meets on the 14th. We hope to have a draft of the strategic plan for the team to look at then. As I mentioned, Scott Furr has been invited to give an update and, well, not an update, but to help us craft language to include in the outline of the plan. And the business summit that was scheduled for the day of the tornado, unfortunately, has been postponed, and that is to be determined. The date is, rescheduled date is to be determined. That's it.
So on the 31st, I wasn't able to attend the special meeting at the pavilion, which if you haven't seen the renovations done to the pavilion at Valentine, I recommend you go over there. They did a great job, certainly much needed. Couple just minor things. There was minimal damage to our parks from the tornado, although the irrigation system at Settlers did sustain some damage. Some of the programs are being pushed back, the summer programs, because of the school Region 15 schedule being pushed back as well. There was a request that came into the commission for the installment of a handicap swing at Settlers Park. The commission felt that the Board of Selectmen should be approached first, as the responsibility to address this would fall under ADA. So I certainly would like Jeff, the office could look into that so that our next meeting.
I've reached out to Dustin. He's on vacation
He's
right
on-
now, so when he gets back, we'll.
Does ADA cover playground equipment? They
Yeah,
do?
it depends on when, and we'll look into that.
Interesting.
Thank you. I did not get to attend yesterday's EMS meeting because it was late afternoon and I couldn't make it back up from work in time, but the minutes are available already on the website. And Region 15 really, I don't necessarily believe that the space study is dated, as you
I
said.
haven't heard
I think
anything.
the primary focus really right now is on the superintendent search. It's where they're spending much of their time because they want to have somebody in place for the new school.
If I may, I also want to, I forgot this, but I've reached back out to the PD. We have, the money's going to be reimbursed because there is now the law's been amended by Arthur O'Neill. It's got it amended that we'll be getting paid the money for reimbursement for the cameras we had bought. So we'll have that money coming back to us. I reached out to them now that the state police have a policy, the state police are going with the cameras. And we will start that, looking at the body cameras. I think it's a better, more appropriate a time than when we first started looking at this. It's kind of ironed out. The data storage is not as bad as like you had to record everything forever. There's like a 90-day window, so we'll be looking at that and see how we're going to proceed forward. So we got that law straightened out. I would like a motion for a 5-minute recess before we adjourn. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Seconded?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Take a 5-minute recess.
What is going on? Maybe there's cake involved. I don't know. I did
Made us
drive
think a
down
little
Sleepy
theatrical.
Hill, and it was pretty good.
The
How was your road?
my friend, we were, my house got some damage to the roof.
Oh, really?
Branches, we lost 3 trees.
Delayed
Nothing
spring.
right on the house, but we found
As soon as
one.
things got going, hurricane came through.
But then,
There's stuff
closest
happening.
friend from town, one of my close friends.
It's the same stuff that's been happening more or less for 12 years. Not enough. It's amazing. I got somebody buying a house that was on the market 3 years ago.
It was some,
People bought it 3 years ago for
we had a lot
$425.
of, widowmakers,
Redid the roof,
branches that were.
I got
redid the
300
siding,
footers across my
Wow.
wrapped it in vinyl.
trees.
Put like 45 grand in or something.
All came
Guess
down
what they're
together.
selling it for?
I had a guy come.
425.
2 of our big trees is still there, but,
No longer an investment. It's not.
Not in our state, unless you're in West Hartford or a couple towns on the coast. No. Not a short-term investment.
Right. 30 years by the time.
cherry chokes.
Wow.
You never know. Just when people say X is never going to happen, usually starts happening.
Yeah, it's like the thing touched down.
I'm trying to move it. There's a lot of New York
One of our
places
trees
driving
was
around.
really like, the
They were the
trees.
biggest responders to the survey when they asked where were people from New York. I'm from New York.
I mean, prices in the village are going up significantly. It's crazy.
Even with ones that don't get remodeled? Or
Well,
because
yeah,
they're
there's
remodeled?
the scarcity now. You know,
Started a new job.
renovators didn't want to pay more than 120. Now they pay 135.
Yeah.
I'm not with,
What about
I'm
this
still in
new
the nonprofit
funding
world. I'm,
coming through from HUD,
Fairfield County
potentially?
Community Foundation.
So I talked to Lainey today. She's pretty excited.
It's revved up,
Slightly short,
So,
by 15.
you know?
well, it's not wood, but
I know.
I was doing that when I first moved here.
that'd be great.
It's something to change. Something's got to give. Can't sustain where we're at.
Me? But easy.
So with the town properties,
Yeah. Yeah, he's,
Hold the thought. use it?
Can't use it. In ground, but toward the liner.
Oh.
Fence, half smashed.
Insurance stuff? Right. Oh.
I had to. You know, it's too much. It's over $8,000. So,
Wow, sorry to hear that. Oh, good thing we got a new liner in the town pool. Sorry, kids, gonna have to schlep over there.
both my brother-in-laws got a pool in the last year or so.
You have alternatives.
The wife and the, well, I mean, it's mostly my wife and kids.
Yeah, utilize it. Sure.
Hopefully we'll be back.
We're open back to the house, so we probably about 3 more.
Not by the 4th of July. I just got it approved.
Really?
Last night I got the email saying it's approved.
I'm hearing great turnarounds from insurance companies.
They have exams.
Well, my pool guy took 2 weeks to get me the written estimate.
They're coming to 27.
And, you know, he's a great guy and he's an old friend. He does awesome work, so.
Just in case you watch it.
Yeah, put up with it, right, Danny?
Missed so much school.
Yep. But, yeah, so it's kind of hard to, considering what could have happened.
Sure.
Kind of hard to whine about that.
And drive
It was
around.
funny though, right after the storm, I'm duplex on Jacob Road, long shared driveways, lots of trees. Tenant calls and she's like, my daughter can't get out of the driveway to go to her class.
Oh, no.
I'm like, Teresina class.
You can
It's
guarantee
Tuesday
there's
night.
the night of.
Half hour after the storm's done. There's wires and she's not in your house. It's a major disaster.
I assure you.
Yeah, there's nothing open, you can't get anywhere. Stay home.
Imagine something like that. I never even heard of it. Yeah, I would never.
My neighbor on Main Street, Chuck Guck, had the top of his pine tree torn off, smashed his garage in half. And just missed the school too.
Yeah, Bullet Hill, right?
Mm.
Oh my gosh. Like, it's amazing. I mean, I know for the people whose homes were affected, that there weren't more, given that, you know.
Yeah, there's so many that fell away.
Yeah, just missed by an air. And there are the ones that.
My wife was on Bullet Hill with the kids in the car. When the thing hit.
Wow. My son was on the lake. He was trying to get to it. He was on the lake with his friend. That started to save him. I relate to that lady with flip flops. My heart breaks for her.
Well, his wife.
Want a cough drop? I might have one.
That's not helping.
Holland's been heavy duty.
Never check my phone in the middle of the night.
I just did a speed test on very strange. I just did a speed test on our internet in here, and it's the same upload and download. It's odd.
Hi, how are you?
Well,
I was thinking about you when
the
I
margin
see
of
you. I
error.
thought, oh, I gotta call it.
It's a lot faster than it used to be.
Oh, it is much faster. It's much more reliable in terms of staying on.
Yeah, Ray's got.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he's not here, so we can't really adjourn the meeting, right? I mean, we're just, well, we could adjourn. We could. I've never heard of a motion. Is that a legal Roberts rule? I guess you could adjourn for 5 minutes. Yeah, you can do anything. You can do anything. Say yes.
Special meeting to fix one topic, because that's back to that long, you know, and so we can get to the regular things, and maybe we should discuss lessons learned from the meeting. Yeah, I think we should do that. Because it's not, I don't know, I think Jeff is not I really do. In Scott said, of course, we are so lucky to have him. It's Thursday. He's just also fundamentally, just not only is an expert, he's a fundamentally good guy. I got to spend some time with him. That was something.
I told him the next parade, we want to have a squadron of F-22s, not just this cargo plane fly over. You missed a parade, but it's pretty cool.
I was at my in-laws in Rocky Depot, but I heard from my 3 friends that they thought that the parade was going to be trouble. Because it got really
It
low,
was
and
like it's
sort of,
flying.
you know, it's an old plane, so it sounded like it was struggling. It looked cool, the video was cool.
Yeah, it was like at least 3.
I've seen some other planes from off the road fly out before, but not that big.
Plane came out of Bradley? Come out of Bradley? I think it did, yeah. Had to be a Connecticut one because they wouldn't fly it out of some other state to come here. I want the F-22s, at least F-35s.
You know, there are people at home sitting in each. Right. 2 of them turned it off.
Bye, Mr. Conti.
You can call me Ron.
Oh, good, thank you.
Everybody else.
Nice to see you.
The solution to your commuting woes, Google's got a flying car. It's probably years away, maybe millions of dollars too.
Hello, sir.
You young man.
Looks like a baby Come on, Mr. Pugliese, come on back.
It's the highlight of his butt. It is.
Closest I'm getting, right here.
How's that?
I hope there's cake involved, that's all I.
Did you guys come up with it?
So Justin, I see that lot sold, the two lots sold right next to me, the one I was trying to buy the other day, a few months ago.
90.
Yeah, I offered more than that. Go figure.
You'd think if they had 90 on the table, they would have called you and just said, hey, you still want to spend 100?
Yeah, and if you wanted to sell both lots, I would have offered him 100.
Unless, of course, it wasn't,
Wasn't for that price, but.
You're on a mission.
or it sold back to Bobby Moss.
We are still
I think he sold it to.
Did you have a nice
Okay,
nap?
thank you for your patience. I'll call this meeting back to order, whatever time it is, and sorry it took so long. I've just been notified that STS Fire Department does not have sufficient staff to cover tonight. I would also like to ask for a working subgroup to discuss the situation. I would like a working group with Justin Betty and Jason Bucksbaum for this meeting, after this meeting, as a working group to discuss this, if we could. So if we could do that first. I'd like to have a motion for a working group to work together. Justin, Betty, Jason, after the meeting.
Okay.
All right. On this, we've just been informed, it was just sent down, so that's what this was about.
Do we need a motion for that?
I don't know if we need a motion. No.
No.
Okay. And we'll meet after this.
So you just want us to stick around and meet to discuss
The three
this?
of us.
Yeah. We don't have
Right.
any authority to do anything, but we're
No,
talking.
no authority,
Okay.
just,
So no motions needed for that then?
right. And we will go from there. Focus here a little bit. And that just came down. Okay. Any other business?
I would just like to, I know we can't speak because of advice of council, we're not addressing the situation with the trees, but are we going to at least have a time frame for a discussion on it, or what?
We'll get there. Yeah. Yep.
I feel like we're leaving
Yep.
them hanging.
Well, talk to our attorney, do our thing. All right? Have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second, made a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.